Have you ever spoken with your parents about the reason why they broke up when you were a kid? Would you want to talk with them? I've spoken with so many adult children of divorce who now, even 10, 20, or more years after their parents split up, still do not know why the relationship ended. Of course, they were there and they saw what happened and they heard stories from relatives or siblings. But many of us are sort of trying to connect the dots and figure out for ourselves events that happened, significant and important events that happened for us when we were very small children or teenagers. As a result, there are a lot of gaps in your memory. There might be lots of unknowns, lots of assumptions, lots of questions, and things that you're just not quite sure about. There may be topics that you don't want to bring up because you're not sure what actually happened. There might be tension and stress and fear and confusion. And this absolutely makes sense because when your parents broke up, you were a child. Maybe you were a baby, infant, toddler, maybe you were in school already, maybe you were even a teenager. But regardless of how old you were when your parents split up, you are viewing and remembering those events through the mind, the emotions, and the intellect of a child. Not only were you a child, but you were a child who was shocked or sad, confused, stressed out, worried, afraid, lonely, or something else. If you remember when your parents broke up, chances are they weren't entirely honest with you about what had happened. They were trying to protect you, maybe they were trying to shed a good light on themselves, or to put the blame on your other parent. Maybe your parent themselves didn't understand all of what was going on. And so there's a lot of reasons why you, all these years later, may still not know what happened in your childhood and between your parents. And if you're okay with not knowing, if you'd rather just stay in the dark, then this is probably not the video for you. There are times when we're ready to learn more and times when we're just happy to stay where we are. But if you're at a point where you think it might be helpful to know a little bit more about why your parents broke up, what were the factors, what had they done to try to work on their relationship, and if you're just looking for some information to fill the gaps in your own memory, then follow along. I'm going to talk us through some reasons why you may hesitate to talk with your parents about the breakup. I'm going to help you to consider whether or not you're ready to have a conversation with them. And if you do feel like you're ready to have a conversation with one or both of your parents about their breakup and what happened, then I have some suggestions for you about how that conversation could be the most helpful for you. So here are a number of reasons why people may hesitate to talk with their parents about the breakup. The first one is simply that you were there. It's your life. You have lived it in real time. It may seem pointless and redundant to talk about something that you lived through. A second reason, because this happened so long in the past, it seems pointless to talk about it. You cannot change what happened or even how you felt about it. A third reason is that you may still view yourself in the role of a child. What I mean by that is you accept what you're told. You don't challenge your parents or ask them directly about anything that they don't want to tell you about. A fourth thing is you might be afraid that your parent is going to say something about your other parent that would upset you. You'd rather avoid the topic and keep the peace. A fifth reason is that you might be worried that your parent will get angry or defensive as you start asking them about what happened. Maybe you've brought up this conversation before and they have responded with defensiveness or anger. Your parent might not be willing to face their own guilt, their shame, their regrets, and so on. A sixth reason is that it's just easier to kind of stay in this realm where you are, where things are a bit fuzzy, a bit confused. You don't really know what happened. It means you don't have to deal with your emotions or the facts that you may encounter. A seventh reason is you might have a poor relationship with one or both of your parents. Maybe you don't even see them or speak to them. Maybe you do see them, but there's not a level of trust, honesty, and vulnerability. You may doubt that this type of conversation can help you in any way. An eighth reason is that you might be afraid of your response, that you will lash out with anger or blame. You don't want to point fingers, get angry, or say or do things that you might regret. And the final hesitation is that you may not see any relevance between what happened in the past and your life now. So therefore, it feels like it would just be a wasted conversation. Now, all of these reasons and factors are legitimate, and I'm not saying that they're not relevant. So for you, it may be just a matter of thinking through, which are the things that are getting in my way? What are my hesitations? And are they something that you can address and deal with, or are they just the way things are? Next, I want to talk a little bit about how having a conversation with your parent or parents about their breakup could help you. The first thing is that an adult conversation with your parent could bring some clarity and some information to your mind and to your awareness. You experienced the breakup as a child, and you might be ready to move on from that childish perspective to something more mature and informed. Secondly, having more information about your parents' relationship, breakup, and your childhood gives you something to work with as you try to process your own experience, including your emotions, habits, relationship, and thinking. It seems to me that as we get older, we do go on a journey of self-discovery where we try to understand what has shaped us into the people that we are, for good and for bad, and then to figure what changes would we want to make. A third thing is that a conversation with your parent or parents could potentially clear the air between you. There may be things that your parents wanted to tell you but didn't know if it was the right time or the right place. They may want to express their regret or their sadness. They may want to justify themselves or help you to explain what was going on in their life at the time of the breakup. And having this type of deep, vulnerable conversation with your parents could make the way for a deeper relationship in the future. Number 4, the conversation could help you to get some closure to those unanswered questions that you've been carrying with you for a long time. A fifth benefit is that this type of conversation can allow you to see each of your parents for who they are. It's pretty normal that children pick a side with one parent over the other. We like to believe that mom or dad is perfect and faultless and has never done anything wrong. But this is only part of the story. And so when we're able to understand more clearly the strengths and weaknesses, mistakes and regrets of each parent, we can see them more clearly and appreciate them for who they are. A sixth benefit that gives you an opportunity to learn from your parents about what they did right and what they did wrong in their marriage and their relationship. This data can be helpful to you as you consider your own life, your own family, your own marriage, and so on. So if these reasons are leading you to think you would like to have a conversation with one or both of your parents about their breakup, it's important to ask yourself, am I actually ready to have this type of conversation? And there's 2 big things that come to mind when I consider that question. The first one is, have I processed my own pain? What I've learned about the healing journey as a child of divorce is that there's not one day when everything is fixed and everything is better. Healing really is a multi-layered process where the more I explore this topic, the more I realize how it's impacted me. I might think the one issue is over here, and then once I open that up, I realize there's 6 other things that are connected. However, I can think about a time in my life when I thought, I've done enough work on myself that I'm ready and willing to have a conversation with my dad about the breakup. When it came to my relationship with my mom, it took me a lot longer to get to that point. Another question is, can I listen with respect to my parent as they're open and vulnerable with me about parts of their life that are probably very difficult? One way to find out if you think you're ready or not is to process this with a counselor, a therapist, or with a trusted friend who has wisdom and experience in difficult conversations. It might be helpful with that friend or with that therapist to talk through what the conversation might look like, how you're going to approach it, how you're going to deal with what you hear, and how you might respond if things don't go the way that you want. Okay, so let's say you've decided that you want to talk with your parents. And I don't mean together. I mean, think about your mom, think about your dad, whichever one you would like to talk with first. If you're ready to talk with one of your parents about the breakup, and you've considered if you're ready or not for that conversation, you decide, yes, you are ready. Here are a few things that I think can help you to have a successful conversation. So take things that you think would be helpful and leave the ones that aren't. The first tip regarding how to have a successful conversation with your parent about the breakup is to explain to them ahead of time what you're looking for. This can be on the phone, over an email, a text. Let them know that you want to understand what happened between them and your other parent when you were a kid. You are prepared to listen without criticism, and that you are not going to use what they share to blame them, criticize them, attack, or something else. The third thing is to be specific with some of the questions that you have. And I'm going to go through a list of questions that might be helpful. So pick the ones you like and send them to your parent ahead of time, just as a thing to get the conversation going, to spark what you're looking for and to prove that you're trying to understand. So you could take out a piece of paper now, pause this, or your phone, write some ideas down of what it is that you would actually like to know. How did you and mom or dad meet? What was it about them that drew you to them the first time you met them and as you got to know them? What qualities did you appreciate about them? How long did you date? What was that relationship like? When did you decide to get married? How did the proposal happen? You could ask them questions about the wedding. How did they feel as they prepared for it? What was it like on their wedding day? What did you think about mom's family or dad's family? Who did you get along with? Who were you not sure about? When it comes to your parents, what did you have in common with mom or dad? What were the things that you knew were different? What did you like to do together? What was your first argument about? How did you celebrate your anniversaries? What did you like to do on the weekends? Where did you go on holidays? You can ask them questions about their early days or years of marriage. You could ask them to talk to you about when you were born or when your siblings were born. How did they feel as their family started to grow? You could ask all kinds of other questions specific to your parents, your family, your life. And then you can start asking more specifically about the relationship and what happened. So you might want to ask them, when did they first realize that something wasn't right in the relationship? What did they do to try to make things work or to try to solve their problems? How did you get to the decision to finally break up and end the relationship? How did you feel when that happened? Then you can ask them questions specifically about you. How old was I when you broke up? How did I respond when you told me or when I found out? You can ask them all kinds of questions about your childhood. You can ask them about future relationships, your stepmom or stepdad, partners they had, houses they lived in, things that happened along the way. There may be gaps in your memory about your own story and their story. Where did you go to school? When did you go back to work? You can ask them what they noticed about you. How did I change after the breakup? What struggles did you see in me? And then a final question that you could ask is, what do you wish you might have done differently? So you don't have to ask all of these questions. You don't have to overwhelm them. But because it's quite a vulnerable and difficult conversation, I think many parents would be happy to know ahead of time what it is that you're going to ask them about. And if there are certain touchy subjects that you think might be really difficult, you can even say to them, we're not going to talk about X, Y, or Z. Okay, so once you've told them what you're wanting, you've sent them a list, you've asked them to consider the request, give them time to think about it. You could follow up with them a week later, a month later, next time you see them. Now, if they say that they're ready to have the conversation, then schedule something on your calendar where you can meet. Give yourself enough time, but not too much time. Maybe you want to give yourself 2 hours or 3 hours. Consider where you could meet where you're not going to be interrupted, whether that's in your home or their home, if it's at a park, if it's going for a walk out. You may find it more safe to be in a public place like a coffee shop or a library. Remember that this is not a fact-finding mission. You are not setting out to interrogate your parent and find out every single bit of information that you never had from your childhood. If it's possible, try to keep the conversation low-key and relaxed. You will definitely get triggered, but try to just keep that to yourself. If you need to take a break, take a break. Remember that the goal of this conversation is information and clarity so that you can heal and move forward. You're not going to sort out everything, address every issue, and get resolution by the end of the 2-hour conversation. But if the conversation goes well, if you're able to listen with kindness and respect, your parent feels like they can be open and honest with you, then maybe you can have another conversation down the road. Maybe your parent will want to know about your experience, how you felt, what it was like for you. There's no guarantees of how the conversation is going to go, but asking the questions and making space to hear the answers can help you. Be sure to thank your parent for their honesty, for their courage, and for their time. You may want to let them know what you're going to do with this information. Are you going to share it with your siblings? Are you planning to keep it confidential? That's entirely up to you what you do with what they tell you. Finally, I would encourage you to take some time, maybe even schedule it ahead of time, to have a conversation with a friend or a counselor about what you've learned through this conversation. You may want to do this with a friend, with a counselor, or by yourself. I'd love to hear your thoughts about this video. If it's been helpful to you, then please subscribe to this channel, follow along for more information, tips, suggestions, and information about the experience of adult children of divorce. I'd also love to hear how the conversation went if you decided to have one. Finally, if you feel like I've missed anything, so if there's other pros, cons, hindrances, or questions that you might want to ask your parent, please leave it in the comments for everybody else to learn from.